Welcome to Step Rumor.
This series contains unverified tales and folklore passed down through generations, created solely for your entertainment.
The Ritual of the Harakiri Ghost. The plains of Khalkhin-Gol are a massive graveyard. In 1939, Soviet and Mongolian forces clashed with the Imperial Japanese Army in a brutal, mechanized war that left tens of thousands of bodies buried beneath the steppe. Years later, a young conscript named Sengel, a sharp-witted boy from the lush forests of Kovsgol, was assigned to a remote border guard post on those exact battlefields. It was a bitter, freezing evening, and the sky was darkening with the threat of an impending blizzard. Sengel was out on a mounted border patrol along the clearing strip. Through the driving snow, a strange, oscillating reddish-yellow light caught his attention, moving deep from within the territory. Remembering his commander's warnings about foreign saboteurs, Sengel forced his horse to lay flat in the tall grass, unslung his bolt-action rifle, and waited in ambush. Through the veil of snow, a figure materialized. The man was wearing a rusted steel helmet, a faded, blood-stained grayish-green imperial uniform, and carried both a rifle and a long samurai sword, katana. His skin was the color of curdled milk. Sengel held his breath, waiting for the trespasser to step closer so he could arrest him. But suddenly, the light blinked out, and the sound of muffled, foreign whispering echoed through the wind. Sengel crept back to his horse to signal for backup, but sitting directly next to his mount was a massive, pitch-black dog. The animal had no tail. Its eyes were fixed on Sengel. Panicked, Sengel threw a stone to scare the animal away and prepared to mount. But his horse's legs were completely frozen to the spot, as if bound by invisible ropes. Sengel remembered an old piece of nomadic folklore. If a ghost binds your horse's legs, urinate near the hooves to break the spell. As he stepped down to do so, the reddish-yellow light flared up violently, blinding him. "Halt! Who goes there?" Sengel screamed, chambering around. The light vanished instantly, and the tailless black dog began running in frantic circles around him. Realizing he was dealing with a boogie, a malevolent war spirit, Sengel yanked his horse's reins with all his might. The horse broke free, leaping forward into a gallop. As Sengel fled, the tailless dog ran alongside his stirrups, matching the horse's frantic speed. Suddenly, the dog leaped into a deep, brush-filled ravine. The moment its paws hit the depression, it transformed back into the pale Japanese soldier, letting out an agonizing, ear-piercing scream that echoed across the plains. Sengel reached his unit half dead with fear. When he told his fellow guards what happened, the veteran soldiers didn't laugh. They looked at each other grimly. "You wandered onto the Tsetseg Ridge," one elder soldier said, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. "During the war, a Japanese platoon was cut off there. Their commander, a fiercely fanatical lieutenant, refused to surrender. He performed harakiri, slicing his own abdomen open. As he bled out onto our dirt, he cursed the land, screaming, 'My bones will rot here, but my spirit will become a demon to wipe out your bloodlines.' Anyone who meets the Japanese lieutenant on that ridge is already dead." The prophecy was absolute. Within 48 hours, Sengel fell violently ill. He suffered from blinding migraines, his skin turned a sickly yellow, and he began vomiting dark, clotted blood. For 2 weeks he writhed in his bunk, screaming in a foreign tongue he had never learned, until his heart finally gave out. The Invisible Shepherds of Jargaland. Elder Belegd was a man who had seen the world turn upside down. A resident of the sacred Jargaland Khan mountain region, he was respected by all as a repository of historical memory. One evening, the local district governor, Erdinadorj, visited Belegd's yurt along with several prominent herders. As the tea flowed and stories of wolves, blizzards, and old princes emerged, the governor turned to the old man. "Belegd Guai, tell them the story of the phantom herders, the ones who stole the sheep." Belegd paused, lit his pipe, watched the smoke drift toward the roof hole of the yurt, and began his chronicle. It happened decades ago during the autumn migration near the southern banks of the Tsinker River. The pastures were lush, and about 10 wealthy families, including herders named Jav and Banzar, had set up their camps together to fatten their livestock before winter. Between them, they owned thousands of sheep. One morning, the camp awoke to an eerie, total silence. When Jav walked out to his corral, it was empty. He ran to Banzar's camp. Empty. Every single sheep from all 10 families had vanished without a trace in the middle of the night. There were no tracks of wolves, no signs of broken fences, and no sounds of panicked barking. Thousands of animals had simply evaporated. The frantic herders mounted their horses, riding out in every direction. About 15 kilometers away, in a deep, isolated southwestern basin, they found them. The thousands of sheep belonging to all 10 families had been driven into the basin and meticulously sorted and held in a massive, perfect, circular formation. There wasn't a single human herder in sight. It took the frantic families until mid-afternoon, shouting and arguing, to sort their respective brands and drive them back to their yurts. The next morning, it happened again. Every corral was empty. Every sheep was found back in the exact same southwestern basin, perfectly penned by invisible hands. On the third night, the herders stayed up to guard the pens with rifles, but a heavy, unnatural drowsiness settled over the camp. The guards admitted that they only closed their eyes for what felt like a single second, but when they opened them, the corrals were bare. The sheep were back in the basin. Desperate, the herders traveled to the local monastery and brought back John Lovejomts, a renowned seer lama. The monk cast his brass dice and frowned. "The residual spirits of a violent death are trapped on this land," he declared. "They are reclaiming what they believe is theirs." The monk summoned a group of specialized Dzogchen lamas, monks trained in the forbidden, terrifying ritual of Luijin, a chud ritual designed to feed one's own flesh to angry spirits to appease them. The ritual began at twilight. Belegd, then a young man, accompanied them. As the darkness swallowed the valley, the lamas began beating their ritual skin drums, damaru, and blowing into trumpets carved from human thigh bones, kangling. The moment the mantras cut through the cold air, the night erupted. From the darkness of the basin, guttural, terrified screams and foreign shrieks pierced the night. It sounded like multiple men fighting, weeping, and shouting in a dialect that was distinctively Chinese. On the first night, the demonic screaming was deafening, battling the sound of the lama's drums. On the second night, the voices grew tired, turning into agonizing wails. By the third night, the spirits were no longer screaming. They were whimpering, throwing faint whispers into the wind until, past midnight, the valley went completely, beautifully silent. The next morning, the sheep remained in their corrals. They never moved again. When the herders asked the High Lama what they had just witnessed, the old master revealed the dark history of the basin. During the chaotic years of the White Russian Baron Ungern's campaigns in Mongolia, the Lama explained, a massive caravan of Chinese merchants was ambushed in that exact basin. The soldiers slaughtered them all, burying their bodies in shallow graves and looting their immense wealth and livestock. The spirits of those merchants remained trapped there, their ghosts frantic with greed, permanently trying to gather and protect any livestock that entered their territory, believing the animals belonged to their stolen caravan. The Luigian ritual had finally paid their security's debts, freeing the merchant ghosts from their eternal, invisible labor.
If these whispers moved you, leave a like and subscribe. Keep the rumor alive.